Rabbi say we're on Samech Gimel Amid Aleph today. We just do one word from Samech. Beis Gufa. Going back to what we were talking about before. The Gemara had told us that the same machlokas that exists by Malachos Shabbos, where there's a machlokas, the Torah says generically, don't do malacha. And then it says in one case, Lo sevaru eish v'chol moshvosechem b'yom haShabbos. Do not burn a fire. Now, eish is one of the 39 malachas. So the question is, why was it extracted as the one example? So to machlokas tanoi, one Tana says lalav yatzas, that it's coming to tell me that all the other malachos carry a heavy penalty, but eish carries a lighter penalty. It's only a mitzvah lo saseh, right? It's not an isser kares or misa, and that's one opinion. And the other opinion is it's lechalek yatzas, which is it's coming to reflect on all of the other malachos, such that if I do multiple malachos behelam echad, which means that I do them all one after the other without any interruption of thought. So the halacha is I'm still going to be chayiv. If I do it b'shogeg, I'm still going to be chayiv a korban chatas for each and every malacha. Normally, when I do multiple acts without interruption of thought, I only have to bring one korban chatas if it's the same type of act. But with Malachos Shabbos, because the Torah pulls out eish, it pulls it out according to this Tana for that reason. Okay, so that's the machlokas by Shabbos. We have a similar machlokas in regard to avodah-zarah. Because for avodah-zarah, the Torah says generically, losa avdein, you may not worship idols. But then it pulls out, it extracts one form of worship, which is hishtachava, lo sishtachave lohem. Do not bow down to them. So the same machlokas. Why does the Torah extract it? So one Manda Omer we had learned yesterday said lelav yatzas, to tell me that you're only over on a mitzvah lo saseh for hishtachava, whereas for all other acts of worship, you're over on a much more serious crime, a death penalty crime. And the other Manda Omar says that it's lechalek. It's to tell me that for multiple acts of avodah-zarah, one after the other, with no interruption of thought, if you do it b'shogeg, you'll be liable for multiple karbanos chatas. So Amar Rabbi Ami, zibeach v'kiter v'niseich behelam echad enu chayev ela echad. So Rabbi Ami clearly is putting his hat in the first category, not in the second category. Because he holds, thank you so much, Shmuel, because he holds that if a person slaughters and offers on the mizbeach and offers libations, and you do this all at the same time without any interruption of thought, you do it b'shogeg, you'll only have to bring one korban chatas for multiple sacrificial acts for avodah-zarah. So you see that he holds, like the first Manda Omer, that hishtachava is lelav yatzas and not lechalek yatzas. So Amar Abaya, my time of the Rabbi Ami. What's Rabbi Ami's reasoning? Omar Kra lo sa'avdeim hakasav asan kulan avoda echas. The Torah says, do not worship them, saying generically, right, that they're all grouped together. All different acts of avodah zarah are grouped together. Umi Omar Abaye hachi. But can Abaye really abide by this? Because v'ha Omar Abaye shalosh ishtachavos ba'avodas kochavim lama echas lechedarka ve'echas l'shalo kedarka ve'echas lechalek. Abaye was quoted as saying that the Torah prohibits bowing down to idols 3 separate times in the Torah. Why 3 separate times? One, to tell me that it's usher when it's the norm to worship it with bowing. Second time, to tell me that even though it's not the norm to worship it by bowing, it's still prohibited. And the third time is to tell me that it's lechalek. It's the third hishtachava is there to tell me that when I do multiple acts, I'm liable, if I do it b'shogeg, for each and every one to bring a korban. So clearly he holds that it's lechalek, not le-lav, not like Rabbi Ami said. So the Gemara answers, you're right. L'dvar of the Rabbi Ami ka'amar v'leilo svirale. You're right. He's only explaining Rabbi Ami, but he himself does not subscribe to Rabbi Ami's shita. So Gufa, let's go back to that statement of Abaya. Amar Abaya shalosh ishtachavos ba'avodas kochavim lama echas lechedarka ve'echas l'shalo kedarka ve'echas lechalek. Why does the Torah, we said, why does the Torah have to write the prohibition of bowing 3 times? One when it's the norm, one when it's not the norm, and one to divide each and every act for a separate korban chatas. But wait a minute, says the Gemara, L'chedarka me'echa yabdu hagoyim ha'ila nafka. Why do you need a pasuk to prohibit bowing down when it's the norm, when we already have a separate pasuk for that? The Torah had said, we learned this a couple of days ago, that when a person says, how do these other nations worship their gods, I shall do the same, is implying that when it's the norm to worship in idolatry in a certain way, it's prohibited. So you don't need a special pasuk for hishtachava to tell me that when it's the norm, it's prohibited. So the Gemara says, you're right. Ela echas kedarka v'shalo kedarka, ve'echas l'shalo kedarka, ve'echas l'chalek. So the way Rashi explains this is as follows. There are two types of shalo kedarka, that's when it's not the norm. One is when I bow down to an idol, and it's not the norm to bow for this idol, but it is the norm to provide honorific service for the idol. What do I mean by that? It could be this idol that instead of bowing to it, they kiss it, right? But they don't bow down. So if I bow down, I'm still in violation, even though it's shalo kedarka. But there's a second type of shalo kedarka, which is where I bow down to an idol where the norm is not even to offer any kind of honorific service to that idol. For example, Baal Po'or. People defecate in front of Baal Po'or. There's nothing honorific about that. So you might have thought that by my doing an honorific act of bowing that I'm not liable. That's why I need the second pasuk to tell me that no, it's an even more removed type of shalo kedarka, because no one does anything honorific to that idol. That too is prohibited.
It's not subjective.
No, that's not subjective. According to the Gemara, that's not subjective.
That's how they honor their avodah-zarah.
That's how they honor it, but it's not subjective because society views defecation, public defecation, as being a disgusting act. So therefore, the only exception is by the Baal Po'or. So therefore, you might have thought that since the way of worshiping Baal Po'or is to debase yourself, therefore hishtachava would not be even prohibited, because it's not in any form of debasing oneself. And therefore you need a second pasuk to tell me that even that is prohibited. Okay? And then the third one, of course, as we said, is l'chalek, to say that you're chayav for each and every act a separate korban chatas. Next, hamekablo olav be'eloah ha'omer lo eli ata. Our Mishnah had said that if a person makes a verbal statement, he says, "You are my God." He says he accepts upon this idol as his false god. So then he's liable and he gets the death penalty for that. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabbi bar Avuha, Amar Rav, Kevin Shamar lo Eli Ata Chayav Lama. Kevin Shamar Eli Ata Chayav. Rav was quoted as saying that as soon as a person says to an idol, "You are my God," that makes him liable. So the Gemara says, "Lama ila katola masnisani." So liable for what? If you're telling me that he does it intentionally and he gets the death penalty for it, so what do you, shkoyach Rav, you're telling me basically exactly what the Mishnah says. So what are you teaching me that I don't already know? Ela lekarban vafilu l'rabanan. So it must be that Rav is referring to when I do it b'shogeg. Let's say I don't realize that this is avodah-zarah. I'm not aware that this is, or maybe I don't know that avodah-zarah is asur. So in that situation, if I say it, and then it's brought to my attention what I did was wrong, I have to bring a korban chatas. So, but you're telling me that a korban chatas can be brought for a mere verbal act? Is that true according to the Chachamim? V'hatanya eino chayiv ela al davar sheyesh bo ma'aseh kagon zibuch v'kitur v'nisuch v'ishtachava v'amar reish lakish man tani ishtachava Rabbi Akiva hi d'amar lo ba'inan ma'aseh michlal d'rabanan sari ba'inan ma'aseh. So let me just unpack this. There's a brisa which talks about what kinds of actions which are done b'shogeg in avodah-zarah make you liable to bring a korban. So the brisa says you have to either do some kind of sacrificial act or bow down to it in order to be liable for a korban chatas if you did it b'shogeg. But comes along Reish Lakish and says that's only according to Rabbi Akiva, because according to the Chachamim, bowing down is not sufficient enough of a physical action because it's only movement of the body. You have to do more than that in order to be liable. Now, how do we know this? Because the source of this machlokus is between Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim when it comes to blaspheming, Birkas Hashem, blaspheming against God. If a person blasphemes against God bishogeg, unintentionally, okay, create your own scenario. So Rabbi Akiva says if you do it unintentionally, you have to bring a korban chatas. And the Chachamim say that a mere movement of the lips is insufficient action to make you liable for korban chatas, because the Torah says you only bring a korban chatas for a ve'asu, people who perform an action. So, therefore, bowing down, according to the Chachamim, is insufficient action. If bowing down is insufficient action, as we see when it comes to avodah-zarah, Reish Lakish says the same applies, that moving the lips or bowing down is insufficient, then how can you tell me that, according to Rav, if a person says, Eli Ata, you are my God, unintentionally, he has to bring a korban chatas. According to the Chachamim, that's not true. So the Gemara says, you're right. Ki ka'amar Rav nami l'Rebbi Akiva ka'amar. Rav was saying, according to Rabbi Akiva, you have to bring a korban chatas. But you're right, according to the Chachamim, you would not. But l'Rebbi Akiva pshita henu megadev. But wait a minute, Shkoyach Rav, what are you telling me that I don't already know from the Mishnah that talks about megadev, a blasphemer? Just like over there, Rabbi Akiva says you have to bring a korban chatas, and the Chachamim say you don't. So obviously, by avodah-zarah, the same machlokas will exist. So the Gemara says, Mahu detema akam l'mechayv Rabbi Akiva korban ela b'megadev dichsiv beikares. Aval hacha deloksiv beikares emalo kamash malan diskushi iskosh. So I might have thought that the only time that Rabbi Akiva holds that for a movement of the body, like movement of the lips or bowing down, that's done unintentionally, you have to bring a korban chatas, is only when you blaspheme against Hashem. Because there the Torah says explicitly, he shall be cut off from Hashem. So it's very, very severe. And therefore, if it's done unintentionally, you have to bring a korban chatas. But maybe avodah-zarah, where it doesn't say explicitly you're cut off from Hashem, maybe if it's done b'shogeg and it's no significant act other than the movement of the body, maybe Rabbi Akiva would agree that you don't have to bring a korban chatas. And therefore, the Rav is telling me, no. Here too, Rabbi Akiva says you have to bring a korban chatas because avodah-zarah and blaspheming are connected, because bowing down and other actions regarding avodah-zarah, he holds are connected to each other from where? Dichsiv, vayishtachavu lo, vayizbechu lo, vayomeru, Eila Elohecha Yisrael Asher Elucha Me'eretz Mitzrayim. That Rabbi Akiva looks at this pasuk and he sees that when the Jews made the golden calf, they said they bowed down to it, they offered karbanos to it, and they also verbally stated, "This is your gods, O Israel, who took you out of Egypt." So it seems therefore to mean that even just a movement of the lips is the same as bringing a karban. And therefore, Rabbi Akiva says that just like blaspheming that's done b'shogeg, you have to bring a korban, so too avodah-zarah that's done b'shogeg, when it's just a movement of the lips, you have to bring a korban. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, imolei vav shebeh elucha nischayvu rishem shel Yisrael kaliya. That Rabbi Yochanan makes a jarring statement. He says, when the Jews said, "This is your gods, O Israel, who took you out of Egypt," they spoke in the plural, he'elucha. Right, which means they took you out of Egypt, which means that they were basically saying the golden calf took us out of Egypt, and the Ribono Shel Olam took us out of Egypt also. So they did it as a partnership. Had they not said that, they would have been utterly destroyed, because at least they weren't rejecting Hashem. All they were doing was giving God an extra partner, right? So it wasn't a total failure. So it comes along and the Gemara says kitanai, but that actually, the statement of Rabbi Yochanan is not so simple. It's a machlokas tanoim, because acherim omrim imolei vav shebe'elucha nischayvu rishem shel Yisrael kliya. So the first opinion is what Rabbi Yochanan said. However, Amar lo Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, ba'alo kol ha'mishatev shem shemaim b'davar acher ne'ekra min ha'olam shenamar bilti l'Hashem levado. Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai says just the opposite. Joining God with somebody else is even worse. Because the Torah says you may only worship Hashem, you may not join Him together with anyone else. So, Adarabba, had the Jewish people consolidated the golden calf with Hashem and made them partners, that would have been much worse. So that's not how to teach the words Asher Ha'elucha in the plural, but rather, what does it mean? Elamatam ulomar Asher Ha'elucha she'ivu Elohos harbe. That they desired multiple gods. In other words, they were so lustful for idolatry that they didn't just make a golden calf and stop there, but they wanted to worship multiple gods. So the multiple gods is not Hashem, multiple gods is golden calf plus other types of idolatry.
Amen.
Next, aval hamegafef, v'hamenashek, hamechabed, v'hamerabetz, v'chulei. The Mishnah had told us that if it's shelo kedarka, if it's not the norm to worship an idol a certain way, then if it's major acts like bowing down or offering a korban to, so you'll still be chayiv misa. But if it's merely hugging or kissing or sweeping or cleaning in front of the idolatry, and it's not the norm to worship the idolatry that way, so then you only are over a mitzvah lo saseh. You violate a negative commandment, but you don't get put to death. So ki asa Rav Dimi Omer Rabbi Elazar al kulam loike chutz mehanoder bishmo v'makayim bishmo. So Rabbi Elazar is quoted as saying that for all of these acts, if you violate them, you get malchus, except when you take a vow in the name of the idolatry, or you fulfill a vow in the name of the idolatry, right? Basically that's what the Mishnah had said, that you group them all together. So Rabbi Elazar is saying, yes, they're all grouped together as not being a capital offense, but do you get malchus? Yes, except for taking a vow in the name of the idolatry. So what makes vowing and fulfilling a vow in the name of an idolatry different? Because there's no physical act involved, and you only get malchus for a physical act. But wait a minute, but if that's the argument, then you shouldn't get malchus for the other things as well, because even though they involve action, but there's a separate issue, which is called lav shebichlalos. Lav shebichlalos means, at least in this context, it means when the Torah gives you one pasuk from which you derive multiple halachas. And anytime you have that kind of model, then this is called a lav shebichlalos, and the Gemara says you don't get malchus for any of those things that are derived from that one pasuk. Because the only time you get malchus is when the Torah says, like, don't eat treif, right? And it only means one thing. If you do it, you get malchus. But if the Torah says something that's vague, and it is inclusive of multiple halachos, so then you don't get malchus for any of those. So let's see, we'll show you an example of that, which we can apply to here, because the Torah simply says by avodah-zarah, lo sa'avdem, don't worship. And it doesn't specify the form of worship. So therefore it's also called a lav shebichlalos, because it's generically applicable to a multitude of different kinds of things. So here's an example of a lav shebichlalos. Tanya, minayin la'ochel min ha'behema kodem sheteitze nafsha shehu below saisa, tamulomer lo sochlu al adam. How do you know that if there's a freshly slaughtered animal, that I'm not allowed to eat from its flesh until all the blood has flowed out from the place of shechita? And how do you know it? Because the Torah says, lo sochlu al hadam, do not eat upon the blood, or in this case, while the blood is still flowing. Davar acher, tell you another pshat of lo sochlu al hadam. Lo sochlu basar v'adayin dam b'mizra. If you're eating the meat of a korban, you may not partake of that meat until the blood has been cleaned out of the sacrificial bowls. As it says, lo sochlu al hadam, do not eat the meat while the blood is still present. Rabbi Dosa omer minayin she'ein mavrin al haruge based in tamalomer lo sochlu al adam. Here's another halacha based on that pasuk of do not eat over the blood, which is that how do we know that if a person is executed by beit-din, normally the relatives have to sit shiva, and we provide them the honor of giving them what's called the sudas havra. We make the hard-boiled egg and we give them the bread. And how do you know that you don't do that for the relatives of an executed convict? Because the Torah says lo sochlu al hadam. Do not make a meal over someone whose blood has been spilled in beit-din. That's how we learn that pasuk. And Rabbi Akiva Omer, minayin l'Sanhedrin shargu es-hanefesh shein to'am in klum kolosu hayom tamalom lo sochlu al adam. And another thing we learn out: how do you know that if the Sanhedrin executes a criminal on any given day, they have to fast the whole day? They cannot eat. Torah says, do not eat over the blood that is spilled by the Sanhedrin. That's the way we learn the pasuk. That's another halacha. And Rabbi Yochanan Omar, Azhar leben sorah mora minayin tamalom lo sochlu al adam. Where do we see that a ben sorah mora is commanded not to be a ben sorah mora? In other words, anytime the Torah punishes a person, it has to first say, thou shalt not. All we have from the parsha of ben sorah mora is that the Torah says if he behaves in a certain gluttonous fashion, take him and kill him. Where was he ever commanded not to be a glutton? The answer is lo sochlu al hadam. which Rashi says is interpreted as, do not eat in such a way that you'll be put to death over it, that your blood will be spilled because of it. V'amar Rabbi Abin bar Chiya v'itemer Rabbi Abin bar Kahana al kulam eino loka mishum dabli lavshe b'chlalos. And this is the kicker, that on all of these acts, if you do them, if you are a ben sower or a mora, or if you go ahead and eat after you've executed a criminal in Sanhedrin, etc., you would not get malchus for that. Why? Because it's a lavshe b'chlalos. It's a generic, all-encompassing mitzvah lo saseh, which is inclusive of multiple halachas. So therefore, the same should hold true by kissing and hugging the idolatry. The Torah never specifies those specific actions. It's included in a generically encompassing prohibition, and so therefore you shouldn't get malchus. So Ela ki asa Rabin Amar Rabbi Elazar al kulan eino lo kechutz min hanoder bishmo v'makayim bishmo. So rather, we have to modify Rabbi Elazar's statement, and what he really said was, you don't get malchus for any of these acts except for when you vow in the name of an idolatry, or you fulfill a vow in the name of an idolatry. So I don't understand. You're telling me that you don't get malchus for hugging and kissing because it's from a lavshe b'chlalos. Well, then you shouldn't get malchus for taking a vow in the name of the idolatry because it's a lav shein bo ma'isa, because it's a non-physical, a non-action kind of worship. So why isn't that taken into consideration? So the Gemara answers, Ahuka Rebbe Yehuda Damar lav shein bo ma'isa lokin alav, because it's actually a machlokas tanoim as to whether you get malchus for a lav shein bo ma'isa. Do you get malchus for a non-action or non-physical violation? So it's a machlokas. The Chachamim say you don't, but Rabbi Yehuda says you do. And this statement of Rabbi Elazar is going according to Rabbi Yehuda, who says you can get malchus for merely just a pronouncement. The Tanya lo sosiru mimenu ad boker, ba kasav litein aseh acher lo saseh, lomar shein lokin alav divrei Rabbi Yehuda. So here we're talking about the Isser of Nosar. The Torah says, do not leave over sacrificial meat beyond the time when it's supposed to be eaten. And the Torah says that if you leave it over, what are you supposed to do? It says, V'hanosar mimenu ad boker ba'esh tisrofu. That if you do leave it over until the morning, then burn it in fire. So Rabbi Yehuda asked a simple question. Let the Torah just prohibit me from leaving it over. Why does it have to tell me what to do in the event that I do leave it over? So the answer is, it's to tell me that I don't get malchus if I leave it over. Normally I would think that I would get malchus for leaving it over. But the Torah therefore says, no, if you do leave it over, we won't give you malchus, we'll just make you burn it. That's the way he understands the pasuk. So Rabbi Yaakov Omer, lo min Hashem huzeh, ela mishum dahaba le'lav shein bo ma'isa, b'chol lav shein bo ma'isa, ein lokin olav, michlal de Rabbi Yehuda savar lokin olav. And Rabbi Yaakov disagrees with Rabbi Yehuda. He says, look, I agree halachically with you that if you are in violation of Nosar, you don't get malchus. But it's not because the Torah says, V'hanosar mimenu ad boker ba'ish tisrofu, but rather it's because leaving something over is a passive act. It's not an active act. You haven't done anything. You've just not done something. And therefore you can't get malchus for something that doesn't involve physical action. So therefore, what do you see from here? That Rabbi Yehuda says you do get malchus for passivity, for let's say, just sitting and doing nothing, or for just saying words. So therefore you see that according to Rabbi Yehuda, you would get malchus for just saying words that invoke an idolatry. And that's who Rabbi Elazar was going like. He's saying for Rabbi Yehuda, you get malchus for taking a pledge in the name of an idolatry, but for all those other acts, even Rabbi Yehuda would agree you don't, because it's a lav shebichlos. Let us go weiter. Hanoder bishmo v'hamekayim bishmo hareza below sase. If a person, like we said before, takes a vow or fulfills a vow in the name of an idolatry, he's committed a mitzvah lo sase. Hanoder bishmo v'hamekayim bishmo minon. So how do we know this? The Tanya, there's a pasuk in the Torah that says, V'shem Elohim acherim lo sezkiru, lo yishama al picha. You may not mention other gods' names. It may not be heard in your mouth. So the first part of the pasuk teaches me as follows: Shelo yomer adam lechavero, shmor li b'tzad avodas kochav and plonis. A person should not say to his friend, meet me at the corner where that idolatry is. So if we hold that Christianity is idolatry, that's a whole machlokes, Rishonim, but I can't say to a guy, meet me at the corner where St. Timothy's church is. You can't say that, because that's invoking the name of an idolatry, even making it as a landmark where you're not worshiping it. You shouldn't mention St. Timothy. Lo yishama al picha, shelo yidor bishmo v'lo yikayim bishmo, v'lo yigrom la'acherim sheidru bishmo v'yikaymu bishmo. And the second part of the pasuk, which says Lo yishama al picha, it shall not be heard on your mouth, is referring to a person who takes a vow in the name of an idolatry. Like he says, you ever hear people say, a goy say, for Christ's sakes, right? That's mentioned like he's taking a vow in the name of an idolatry, if we hold that that's takai avodah-zarah, it's a machlokes. Or if he fulfills a vow in the name of an avodah-zarah, but we go even further. You're not allowed to cause another person to take a vow or fulfill a vow in the name of avodah-zarah, including, as we'll see in a moment, including non-Jews. I am not allowed to be the cause of an oived avodah-zarah invoking the name of his avodah-zarah to fulfill a vow. Davar acher, another explanation, lo yishama al picha azar lemeisus ulemediach. Another explanation of what lo yishama al picha is a command. It's telling me the prohibition for a person to seduce other people to sin. There's two types of seducers. One is a seducer of an individual, that's called a mesis, and the other one is a seducer of a community of people to make like an ir hanidachas, that's called a mediach. Now, mesis behedjiksiv bevechol yisol yishmu v'yiro below zidun lasos adavar hara zevik yirvecha. The Torah already says, specifically by a mesis, a seducer of individuals, that you may not do this. So what do you need this pasuk for? So Gemara says, you're right. El azhar lemediach. It's an azhara for a person who seduces an entire community. Right? That's what you need this pasuk. So now, v'lo yigrom lachem sheyidru bishmo v'sheyikaimu bishmo. What was the previous opinion? That you're not allowed to cause others to invoke idolatry when they take a vow. So Misayeya leile avua dushmul, damar avua dushmul, asel adam sheyasu shutfes emoive kolchavim shem yischayv lo shvua, v'nishba ba'avodas kolchavim shelo, v'hator omer lo yishama al picha. This supports Avua Dushmul's position. He was of the opinion that a Jew is never allowed to enter into a business partnership with a heathen, because there may be some kind of business conflict, and through that business conflict, the goy will be forced to take a vow in court, and he'll invoke the name of his avodah-zarah when he takes the vow to prove his honesty. I swear by my God, right? So therefore, you can't enter into partnership, because if he takes a vow invoking the name of his God, you're in violation. Ki asa ula bas bikal nabo. So Amarle Rava vehecha bas mar Amarle bikal nabo. Now the Gemara relates a story that Ula once lodged in a place called Kal Nabo. And Kal Nabo actually happens to be the name of an idolatry as well as the name of a town, like Satmar. Did you know that Satmar is Satmar is the name of a town where the Satmar Hasidim come from, but it's also St. Mary. That's what Satmar means, literally. Okay? So I don't know what the heter is to mention Satmar. Maybe I won't talk about them at all. So, but the point is that that's an example. There are many towns in Europe that are named after saints, and that could be avodah-zarah. So, Amar Lei v'haksiv v'shem Elohim achim lo saskiru. So Rabbi says to him, how could you mention that you lodged in Kal Nabo? You just mentioned the name of an avodah-zarah. So Amar Lei hachi Amar Rabbi Yechanan kol avodas kol chavim haksuva b'Torah muter lahaskir shema. Because he said that according to Rabbi Yochanan, that prohibition only applies to avodah-zarahs that are not mentioned by name in Tanakh. But if it's mentioned by name in Tanakh, since the Tanakh mentions it, that means that you're allowed to mention it. And Kal Nabo is mentioned in Tanakh. Where is it in Tanakh? T'chsiv kara beil karos nevo. He says because beil karos nevo, which is Kal Nabo, another name for Kal Nabo, has crouched down. V'lo ksivalo. So now you're implying that if it's not written in Tanakh, then you're never allowed to invoke its name. But Masiv Rav Misharsha, let me raise a question to that. Ra'a echas meruba keshalosh, shehi kemagdion lishilo, shehein shtei tevilos u'shnei sfugin, harei ze zav gamor. There's a brisa that talks about a zav. there's a regular zav and there's a major zav. A zav, a zav gadol, like a major zav, whose level of tumah is greater. He's tummy for 7 days. In order to become a major zav, you have to have 3 re'iyos. You have to have 3 gonorrheal emissions. But they have to be 3 disparate gonorrheal emissions. But the Brisa there talks about what happens if a person has one constant flow that lasts as long as it takes to have 3 gonorrheal emissions and to purify oneself in between each one. So that's a really long emission. Probably the guy would probably have to go to the hospital after that kind of emission. But if he does, the halacha is that he's rendered a zav gadol. And how long is that time period? How long does that flow have to last for? The time it takes to walk from Megadyon to Shiloh. And what is that equivalent to? The time it takes to have a short emission, run to the mikveh, dry off, have a second emission, run to the mikveh and dry off, and then to have a third emission. If you take that amount of time, it's the time it takes to walk from Megadyon to Shiloh. Well, what's the point of citing this brisa? Megadyon is the name, like Kalnubo is the name of an idolatry, and it's not mentioned in Tanakh. So how can the brisa invoke its name? Amaravina Gad Nami Michtav Ksiv. Megadyon is just an elaborate name for God, and God is the name of an idolatry that's mentioned in Tanakh. Dichsiv ha'orchim lagad shulchan, those who set a table for the idolatrous God. It's a little bit ironic that the word that we have in English for the Almighty is God, and God is the name of an avodah-zarah. I'm not sure what.
It's a shevet.
What?
It's the name of a shevet.
What's the name of a shevet? God. Yeah. Amar Rav Nachman, Kol Leitzan. Now a related issue. Rav Nachman says, Kol Leitzanusa asira chutz mi leitzanusa davodas kochavim desharia. Making fun of someone else or something else is always prohibited, except when it comes to avodah-zarah. You're allowed to make fun and mock avodah-zarah. Dichsiv kara bel karas nevo, because it says that bel karas nevo is crouching down, which is implying that it's bending over to defecate, to relieve itself, to empty its bowels. Karsu karu yachdav lo yachlu maleit masa. Related to that is the pasuk in Yeshai that also says that these idolaters, their idol had to bow down and crouch because it was not able to escape the heavy burden of having a full bowels. Its bowels were so full. Basically, it's saying it's so full of it that it had to empty its bowels and have an explosion right there in the middle of the street. That's a mocking statement because obviously an inanimate statue doesn't go to the bathroom, but it's basically saying that the idolatry is full of you know what.
Nebuchadnezzar also novel, right? Nebuchadnezzar also novel.
Nebuchadnezzar.
He's
right. But he's a human being. We're talking about a statue, right? Uchasiv, another pasuk that illustrates that is, it says, where's this pasuk? Dibru divarim alos shav laeglos beis aven yaguru shechan shomron ki aval alav amo chmar valav yagilu al kivodo ki galam imen. It's a pasuk in Hosea, which talks about the honor to these idolatries, so that the priests will rejoice over the idolatry. Al tikri kivodo ela kivedo. Do not read they will rejoice over its honor, kivodo, but rather al kivedo, over its heavy laden bowels, and that's again mocking the idolatry. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Mai dichsiv be'ato yosifu lachato ve'yasu lahem masecha mikasvum kiskuna matzabim. Again, referring to idolatrous Jews, it says that they add to their sin, they make themselves an image from silver, and kisvuna matzabim, they make their idolatry like their image. Mai kisvuna matzabim, what does that mean? Melamed shekol echad ve'echad osa demus yiraso. That Jews at the time were so steeped in idolatry that everyone made themselves a personal little getchka, like an action figure, but made it into an idolatry, stuck it into his pocket, and any time he would invoke the name of the idolatry, he'd pull out the geshka and kiss it. Like sometimes, like very religious Catholics, every time they mention Jesus, they'll pull out the crucifix and give it a kiss, right? So, my zovchei adam agalim yishakun. What does the pasuk in Hosea mean when it says that those who offer man will give to the calves to drink? That's what yishakun seems like it means. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak devei Rabbi Ami shayu misharsei avodas kochavim nosnim eineim bevali mamon umariben es hagolim osun demus atzavim umamidim b'tzad avuseim umotzinos and lechutz keven shiro osun ratzim achreim umashmishim bahen amrim lo avodas kochavim chafetz bach yavo v'yizbach atzmo lo. So the Gemara gives this very interesting story about the priests of this avodah-zarah that existed in the times of Hosea. Basically, the church needed to make some money, just like the televangelists of today. So they used tricks. So what kind of tricks did they use? They would lay their eyes on a very wealthy man, and they would basically take the calves that they had growing in the farm behind the church, and they would starve them. And then finally they would let them eat at their feeding trough, but they would have an illustration or like a picture of that wealthy person right in front of the trough, so that when the animals were eating, they would associate that man's face with the fact that they got to eat. Then they would starve them a little bit more and let them go. So the calves, when they would see that wealthy man, they would run over to him and start nudging him, ask him for food. So then the priest would come out and say, "Oh, it's a sign from the heavens that the gods have chosen you to be the chosen one, because the calves of our idolatry have come to you." So what basically did they do? They said, you have to offer yourself as a sacrifice to the gods and leave your money to the church. That was the trick that they used. Okay? Sort of like what some people do today. They say, I'm not going to get into it. Okay, I'm not going to start. Okay, I'll behave myself. Anyway, so this was an avodah-zarah of the time. And so Amar Rava, Hai Zovche Adam Agolam Yishakun, Agolam Yishakun Lizboach Adam Yiboile. According to your explanation of what went on back then, the pasuk is out of order. Instead of saying those who offer man will give their calves to drink, it should have said those who give their calves to drink do so in order to sacrifice man. So that's what it should have said. So Ella Omar Rava Kol Hazavech Espanol Avodas Kochavim Omar Lo Daron Gadol Hikriv Lo Yavo V'Yishak Lo. But rather what it means is like this. Zovchei Adam Agalim Yishakun. He who offers a human being up to the gods, and that was referring to a person who would sacrifice his own child to the idolatry, would have the zechus. The priests would say, "Oh, that's a very chush of a thing that you did. We're going to give you a special reward that you get to kiss the idolatry." So the word yishakun doesn't mean you get to drink, but it means you'll get to kiss. Okay, so that special privilege that you get to kiss the idolatry because your son is now dead. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, the Anshe Bavel Asu es Sukos Benos. There's this whole section in Sefer Malachim which talks about all of the idolatries that the other nations made for themselves at that time. And it says that the people of Bavel created an idolatry called Sukos Benos. Umay Nihu Tarnagolis. And the Gemara says, what was it? It was a statue in the shape of a chicken. That's what we do today. We worship the holy chickens at every meal. Va'anshe Kus Asu es Nargel. The people of Kus made Nargel, an idolatry called Nargel. There too, Umaynihu Tarnagol. There too it was a chicken. Va'anshe Chemas Asu es Ashima. They made this idolatry. Umaynihu Barcha Karcha. It was either a wild sheep or goat. The Ha'avim Asu Navchan Vestartak. They created this idolatry. Umaynihu Kelav Chamor. It was in the shape, a statue in the shape of a dog, and another one in the shape of a donkey. V'hasafarvim sorfim es b'neihem ba'esh la'adar melech v'ana melech Elohei safarvim. So that the safarvim, if that's how to pronounce it, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, they made an idolatry. One second, when we get the pasuk, right? The hasafarvim, they would burn their sons in fire to Adar Melech and Anamelech, the gods of the Sepharvayim. So Umaynihu, Haperid ve'asus, their idolatry was in the shape of a mule or a horse. Adar Melech, the Adar le'lamari b'te'ina, and the reason why they called the mule idolatry Adar Melech is because the donkey or mule is devoted to its master by carrying its burden. That's what Adar Melech means, that it bears or gives glory to the king, gives glory to its master by schlepping. And Va'anamelech da'ani le'lamare b'krava. And Anamelech refers to the horse because it responds to its rider in times of war. It will ride the soldier into war. Ab Chizkiya Melech Yehuda bikesh ofiv lasos lokein, ela shesachso imo salamandra. Chizkiya's father, Chizkiyahu HaMelech, his father was an idolater, and he also wanted to sacrifice his son Chizkiya to the false gods. But his mother protected him because she took the salamander's blood. Salamander, Rashi says, is a special kind of creature who is impervious to fire, like an asbestos kind of creature, that you put it into fire and it doesn't burn. So his mother took the blood of the salamander, smeared him, covered his body with the blood, so that when his father threw him into the fire to the gods, he was not killed, he was not burnt by it. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav, Yodin ha Yisrael v'avodas chulchavim shein b'mamish v'lavdu avodas chulchavim el la'atir lahem arayos b'far hesi. Final topic we're going to talk about today is why the Jews chose idolatry in the times of the prophets. It wasn't because they felt that there was anything substantive to these getchkas. They knew that it was baloney. But why did they choose avodah-zarah? Because it was a pretense to allow them to engage in all forbidden kinds of sexual relationships. And they knew that according to the Torah they weren't allowed to. So let's choose avodah-zarah because at least according to the avodah-zarah we can do what we want. So the Gemara says, you're telling me that they knew that the avodah-zarah was baloney? So Masav Rav Misharshia, ki zechor b'nei mizbechosa, v'amar Rabbi Elazar k'adam sheish lo ga'aguin al bino. So the Gemara says there's a pasuk that talks about the remembrance of their children, referring to their idolatry as their children. Why did they refer to the idolatry as their children? Because they were so attached to their idolatry that it was like someone yearning for their children. So you see that it wasn't just that it was a pretense and they knew that it was nonsense, but that they were really emotionally attached to the idolatry. So the Gemara answers, Basar da'avikube. It's only after they got used to the avodah-zarah. It's like, a person goes to church every Sunday. First Sunday he goes, it's nonsense. I'm just going because I'm married to a non-Jewish woman. She made me go to church. I'll go to church. I know this baloney. I get up and I say, dear, my fellow goyim, how are you? Right? So it doesn't mean anything. Right? But after a couple of years, a few years of doing this, you become attached to the people in the church. You start to like them. You start to like the practices. You like the songs. So that's what was going on over here. So Toshma v'nasati figrechem al pigre gilu lechem. There's a pasuk in the Tochacha that says, I shall place your corpses upon the dead idolatry statues of yours. So Amar Eliyahu atzadik hayemachazu al tapuche ra'av she'b'Yerushalayim. And the story is that Eliyahu, the righteous, probably referring to Eliyahu HaNavi, was once traveling in Yerushalayim at the time of the Churban, seeing all of the mass death and starvation that was taking place, and he runs across he sees a small child who's suffering from dysentery because he's starving to death, and he's lying on a garbage heap. Eliyahu says, what family are you from? He says, I'm from such and such a family. He says, is there anyone left alive in your mishpacha? He says, no, I'm the last survivor. He says, listen, boychik, if I tell you a simple sentence through which reciting the sentence you can live, do you promise to learn it? So Amar lo hein. Child said, okay, fine. So Amar lo, emor b'chol yom shma Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. So Eliyahu said to him, every day I want you to say just that pasuk, Shema Yisrael. And you'll live, you'll survive. So Amar lo, has, shelo lahaskir b'shem Hashem, shelo limdo avi v'ima. So the child says, be quiet. I'm not allowed to mention that name of Hashem. My parents never taught me that name. And I'm only going to mention the gods that my parents taught me. So, miyad hotzi yirasu mecheku mechabku menashka, the child pulled out his little getchka from his pocket, started hugging and kissing it. Ad shenifka kreisel v'naflu yirasul arts v'naflu aleha. L'kaim hashenemer v'nasati figrechem al pigre gilu lechem. And the child became he was dying anyway, so he dropped the getchka, fell down on the heap, he rolled over it and died. And this was a fulfillment of the verse that says, I shall place your corpses over your dead idolatry. So the Gemara says this story is illustrative of the fact that there was a real emotional attachment and devotion to the avodah-zarah, not that it was nonsense. So how can you say that they knew it was nonsense? Answers the Gemara, the same answer as before, basar da'avikube. After they got used to it, after they became accustomed to it, they became attached to it. But originally they undertook avodah-zarah not because it was anything serious, but because it was a pretense to do what they wanted to do sexually. Have a wonderful day.